Hey, guys and girls, Mr. Weir here again. We are still talking about the Middle Passage, but this time we're not going to watch a video. We're going to focus on some primary sources. Now, primary sources, if you don't remember, are sources that are first-hand information, as if you were hearing it directly from someone that was there at the time. So these contain some terms we don't use anymore to refer to people. You're going to have to keep that in mind. They're authentic. They are from the people that wrote them while you were there. Now, with that in mind, let's kind of check out what I'm talking about here. Our learning goals here in doing this is how has Africa's past shaped our present and its past as well? How did people experience the Middle Passage? And again, as we are reading through these, I want you to think about bias and credibility in doing this. So let me give you a little more background on what's happening with this. Okay, there's a link in here for the video that shows you somewhat graphically how the people had to endure being enslaved across the Atlantic Ocean during this transatlantic voyage. And then we'll talk about the 3 points of view that are going to be offered here in primary source material. First, this took place at the end of our timeline that we've got through the textbook here, from the 1500s through the mid-1800s when slavery was officially outlawed. It happened with the triangular trade. They would pick up enslaved Africans here in West Africa, put them on the boats through the transatlantic voyage, sell many of them in South America and in the Caribbean, and then they would take on purchasing raw goods like sugar, tobacco, and cotton, and then from there they would take those and sell them over here in England, and England would use them to make finished goods, manufactured goods, textiles, cotton, all kinds of things that you can make with raw materials, sugar and tobacco, wood, fish, a lot of those things. They would take then that money that they made selling here, come back over here to West Africa, and oftentimes make a deal with some of the local tribes, picking up captured enemy tribe members and taking them all over again. All right, so a slave ship has a lot of parts and pieces here to it. So it's hard to see it at this view. So let me zoom in just a bit. They had diagrams, and this is a primary source as well. This shows a diagram of how they plan to store as many people as possible within a couple of decks of this boat. Let me zoom in a bit more here so you can see. This was the bow or the front of the boat, and it shows just how tightly packed they could put people on these boats. Looking over here as well, it wasn't just men, it was women and children as well. So the smaller spaces, they could still fit in a number of children and women to do that as well. You can imagine what this would be like if you had to spend 2-3 months in the same relative position for hours at a time. It's terrible. It's terrible. People would die right where they were. I'm going to let you click on the link to watching this video. It mentions 2 people that we're going to be reading primary source passages from. Olaudah Equiano, who was a slave who later purchased his freedom and wrote about his experience as a young child growing up in slavery. And then it also mentions Dr. Falconbridge, a slave ship doctor. Both of them are featured in some of the quotes as well as a bit of the video here. Now, I've had people ask, this is not actual footage of a slave ship. They didn't have video cameras back then. And as silly as that may sound to you, I've had kids wonder about it. This is a recreation. These are actors, okay? Even still, it is hard to watch at times. Recapping some of the information here to go with it. Okay, 12.5 million Africans from 1500s through the mid 1800s were taken alive over to the New World. Only about 10.7 million survived. It's a little under 2 million people dying in this transatlantic slave trade. Out of those 12.5 million, only a small portion were taken to the present day colonies of the United States. Most of the European powers that were around at the time were involved in it. The Portuguese, the British, French, Spanish, Dutch, English, the British there were involved in it. So here's what I want you to do. After you've watched that short video, I want you to come back here. And within here, it'll take you to a Google form. I want you to read each passage. I want you to start with the background information. It's up at the top of the page. But read each of these passages. Remember that they're all coming from 3 different points of view. And each person has a specific reason for telling you the story the way that they experienced it happening. Okay? With that in mind, I wish you good luck. I hope things are going well for you. And I will see you back in the next lesson. Thanks.